Hi, it's Polly with Get Busy Thriving. Today I want to talk around the idea of courage. And I think a lot of us have the idea that courage is like this big kind of rare word that maybe only superheroes have or super successful people or it's something that people are just born with. And I find that courage is it's everyday acts. It's everyday acts and I want to give you a couple of ideas on how to have more courage in your life. First, courage, it's like confidence. It comes from use, right? It comes with repetition, with practice. It's like a muscle. You can get better at being courageous. And sometimes it's like taking little small steps that can help us have a little more faith and a little more faith. Like, well, I did a little bit. I stepped out in a little way that I was afraid of, and I had success, right? So we create that more inner confidence within ourselves. And the bigger leaps, right? Things like speaking up in a meeting when you never have, or saying something to someone in a relationship where you've never done that before, or just doing something that you don't ordinarily do. We get these comfort zones, right? We liken it to being inside the box. And we say, think outside the box. Well, courage is like acting outside the box. And I remember one time learning in a workshop, and a dear friend, Jen Dudley, you hit this home for me so many times, and that is like everything you want in your life lies on the other side of fear. So, how do we get to all those things that we want in our life if we never face those fears? But how do we face those fears, right? They feel binding or immobilizing or overwhelming or paralyzing. They just kind of make our body either go limp or go numb or go the other direction. So how do you have courage when you're like, I'm paralyzed? So a couple of thoughts came to mind. One is, I love this. I got this from Brendon Burchard. Thank you. And that was, be curious. Be curious because, a lot of times where the need for courage comes from is the story we're telling ourselves, right? We're disempowering ourselves with a story. Either it could look like, oh, this is going to turn out bad, or they could say this, or I won't be able to do that thing, right? So we tell ourselves a story that disempowers us. And what does someone who doesn't have a lot of power do? They don't take a lot of action. So first is like check in with that story, and instead, how can you look at whatever it is you're about to do, not as like a leap of faith or an act of like sheer bravery in the moment, or like, holy cow, I've never done this before, but instead with courage and with curiosity. So I think curiosity could be a cure for what ails most people who don't think they're courageous. So if you say, well, I wonder how this is going to turn out, or I wonder what they'll say, from like a wonder state, or like a possibility, like maybe this could work out, or maybe I could do something I've never done before. What if that's possible? Like totally turn it on its ear. So your fear, that thing, that story that you're telling yourself that has you locked up in kind of shackles of paralysis or pulling back or what have you. What if you instead said, well, what if this goes well? Like what if I did say that thing, or what if I did tell them how I really felt, or what if I stopped caring what other people think, or etc. Right? So when we come about it from a curious standpoint, it's not so much like this act of like heroic bravery. Instead, it's, let me see how this goes. Because oftentimes when we need courage, it's because we need certainty, right? Like we have a need for certainty to know how this is going to turn out. Like, I'm not sure if I should say that because it could go wrong, or it could go bad, or I could fail, or what have you. If we change that story, and then we transform that need for certainty to, well, what if? Like, what if something great could happen because of this? I've never done this before. And if you want a different result in your life, if you want a different sense of relationship with people, if you want to see yourself as taking action, being more bold, completing things, or doing less, right? Like, what if I didn't work so hard? Or what if I didn't check everything off of my list today? Or what if I didn't, do that extra workout, or drive myself so hard, or try and like make sure everyone in my life is taken care of? What if I took care of me a little bit more, right? Like what a brave act that could be for some of us. So it's looking at it differently from a place of curiosity, like, I wonder how this could go. And it turns it away from the story of this could go badly. You know, the word worry always signals to me that somebody has an expectation that things aren't going to go well. Like you're worried because you have an expectation things are going to turn out badly. I like to replace that with wonder, right? So I wonder how this is going to go. Like I wonder how they'll respond, or I wonder if I did that, or I wonder if I stopped doing that, how it would be different. And then experiment, right? And it's not about doing it perfectly. Like you may say something to someone that you've never said before. Maybe you haven't been courageous enough because you've been afraid of what their outcome would be. But instead, what if you said, well, I wonder if this could go well, right? And it will have you come into the place of rising to the occasion differently. Like, let me see what happens, right? Let go of the need for certainty. Certainty, you know, the worry is I'm certain that this isn't going to go well, so I'm not going to do anything. That can keep you paralyzed. If you instead turn it into wonder, at least you kind of lighten the reins and you go, well, I could maybe experiment with that, or I could try this. I could do something differently. I could do or not do, right? Because some of us, we're doing so much in our life. It's about sometimes not doing that is that act of bravery, like not, you know, making sure everybody in your life is taken care of at the expense of yourself, right? So I hope there's something in this that you can get in terms of courage, because what I want to also remind you of is the box that we have ourselves in, the comfort zone that we live in, is because we have conditioned patterns of behavior and experiences, right? Conditioned feelings that we're comfortable with. Like, I'm comfortable saying this because I know that I'll feel this way, or I'm comfortable doing or not doing these things. And it's that level of discomfort, right? And you know you get there because you get these washes of either paralysis, like, or you get these waves of sweaty palms or fidgetiness or what have you. And we think that those signals, because of the fight or flight, right? Because you're telling yourself a story that has your mind thinking something bad could happen, protect her, protect him, protect yourself. When we get those washes, it's just a natural instinct that the story we're telling ourselves is creating that response in our body, the fight or flight, the instinct to protect you, to keep you from harm's way. You know, you think speaking up to this person is going to harm you. Well, your body goes into that like protect itself mode. Instead, if you can transform the story to one of curiosity, you can release different hormones, different chemicals, because curiosity is like childlike, like, oh, okay, maybe this could go great, right? If you come about it with a different sense, a different way of being, a different outlook, a different paradigm, a different story you're telling yourself, you won't have those same washes of chemicals going through your body that feel that paralysis, that fight or flight, need to protect myself, that the body goes into. That's normal instinct. Little harder work, but possible, is acting in spite of it. So if we recognize that, you know, these chemicals that get washed over our body, these biochemical signals from our brain, like something dangerous is about to happen. If I do that, bad things could happen. Or if I don't follow through or act or something, bad things could happen. It's all made up in our mind anyway. So if we recognize the signal, right? So let me tell you a little story. I can remember when I would give speeches and I'd be about to go on stage, and this happens for a lot of people, and it still happens for me. So I'll tell you the whole story, and that is, you know, the washes of chemicals I would have is like, what if this doesn't work out, or what if they don't like it, or what have you? We get those normal butterfly jitters kind of thing going on stage, public speaking, a big fear that we have. Well, I was trained in a workshop about how to re-look at the way that I thought the experience of that was, right? Like, so my body is, you know, a little bit sweaty, a little fidgety, like my stomach was a little uneasy. And I said, what if that, instead of being fear of speaking, what if that's excitement from your spirit that you're about to give your gifts, you're about to share your gifts? And I was like, well, that's totally differently. So how I related to the experience of the chemicals, of the physiological symptoms that manifested because of my story, I related to them differently. Same sweaty palms, same little belly flips, same jitteriness. But instead I went, oh, I'm about to share, that's my spirit about to share my gifts. Totally transformed my ability to move through that experience and do it anyway. Whereas before it was like, and how would my speeches go before and after I had this transformation? completely different, right? So for you, and this is like a different level. So I would encourage you to work on the story, because oftentimes we can, we can relate to something differently. We don't get those binding sensations physiologically, triggers that tell us something bad is going to happen. Protect yourself, right? That our instinct says pull back, don't do, walk away, avoid that, right? What if you want to practice bravery and courage, is if you don't work on your story, you work on relating to the experience of it, relating to the fear, relating to the physiological symptoms, however they manifest in your body. What if you relate to them differently? And instead of saying, oh, what if it's, wow, this is me being the confident me that I've always wanted to be. And that's a little fearful, but you know what? I can do hard things. I can do brave things. You relate to that experience differently. So what physiologically shows up for you as a trigger of worry or fear or self-doubt or, how bad things could happen, you relate to those signals differently, and then you act instead of them. Now that takes a much different level of rewiring, of reframing, if you will. But I can tell you that those symptoms, they're not literally handcuffing you. They're figuratively, they're physiologically designed to help you, avoid danger. They're not so bound, like you're not being held back by someone, you're being held back by your mind. What if instead you looked at those signals and you acted anyway? And instead of retreating, you leaned into it. You said, whoa, I'm not sure if I should do this. I'm going to do it, right? I don't know how, if I can not do this, I'm going to do it, or I'm not going to do it, right? And the experience that you're having with those physiological symptoms, they'll go away. Like you'll still be acting, and what you'll find is, boy, I can tell you in times of my life when I have felt the signals and I acted anyway, and I got the result. I mean, you want to talk about elation and like feeling so proud of myself for maybe of not overcoming my own instinct, my body's instinct, but I knew it was driven by my brain, not maybe from my heart. Like I knew I wanted to speak up and say something in this situation or to this person, or I wanted to stop doing something that I felt obligated to, but the fear of what they would think or what they would say. But when I did those things, when I changed, when I overcame the resistance that I felt internally, and I acted or I said or I stopped doing something, boy, the inner me, the confident me, like you want to talk about like pouring water on a flower that just says, I'm designed to grow and live like this outside of, my mental conditioning of instinct to avoid these things. Then you get that muscle of courage more and more, right? You speak up more, you say your truth more, you trust yourself more, you believe in yourself more. Talk about self-empowerment, right? Self-compassion for yourself, and growing the belief that you have that you can start to do anything, right? So I hope there's something in this that the next time you're faced with an opportunity to be courageous, that you'll either change the story, notice how you're relating to it so that you can reduce the sort of the anxiety or those fears or whatever, the doubt that goes on in your mind, create more certainty perhaps, like see it going well, like act it out, play it out so that you see it going well, see that situation turning out better by shifting the story, or try on experiencing the fear and acting anyway and see what happens. So I hope this has been helpful. Love this conversation around courage. If you have anything to share, I welcome your feedback. Enjoy.